The prophecy of Uranus hung over Cronus like a black cloud that refused to dissipate.
You shall fall by the hand of your own children.
Cronus, the king of the Titans, had two choices: ignore the curse or destroy the threat. He chose the latter, embarking on a path of madness that would stain his reign forever. Every time his wife, the Titaness Rhea, gave birth, Cronus was there. He did not come to hold his children or name them. He came to eliminate them. As soon as the newborns, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, came into the world, Cronus opened his immense jaw and swallowed them whole. He did not kill them. They were immortal gods, after all. Instead, he imprisoned them within his own stomach, a living dungeon where they grew in darkness and despair. Rhea was devastated. She was the queen of the cosmos, yet she was powerless to save her offspring. But grief turned into cold determination when she became pregnant for the 6th time. She fled to her parents, Gaia and Uranus, begging for a plan to save this last child. Following their whisperings, she traveled to the dark forests of Mount Lycaon to give birth in secret. There, under the cover of night, Zeus was born. Rhea returned to Cronus's palace, but she did not bring the baby. In her arms, she cradled a large stone wrapped in heavy swaddling clothes. With a trembling heart, she approached the throne. Cronus, blinded by his paranoia and greed, did not even check the bundle. He snatched it from Rhea's hands and swallowed the rock in one gulp, believing he had secured his throne forever. But he was wrong. While the stone sat heavy in his belly, the real threat was growing far away on the island of Crete. Hidden deep within the Dictaean cave, baby Zeus was raised not by his mother, but by the wilderness. He was nursed by the magical goat Amalthea and guarded by the Curetes, fierce warriors who danced and clashed their spears against their shields every time the baby cried, masking the sound so Cronus would not hear him from Olympus. The child grew on a diet of honey and vengeance. He was no longer a helpless infant. He was becoming a force of nature, training his body and mind for a single purpose: to return home and rip his siblings from his father's belly. Years passed, and Zeus reached maturity. He was no longer a hidden child, but a god in his prime, radiating power. However, he knew that brute force alone would not defeat Cronus. He needed cunning. For this, he sought the counsel of Metis, the Titaness of wisdom.
Heed my words, Zeus.
She understood that Cronus's strength was also his prison. He held the potential allies Zeus needed inside him. Metis brewed a vile potion, a mixture of nectar, mustard, and potent herbs designed to purge the stomach of a god. Disguised as a humble cupbearer, Zeus infiltrated the dark palace of the Titans on Mount Olympus. Cronus, arrogant and unsuspecting, did not recognize his own son. He demanded wine, and Zeus handed him the golden goblet spiked with Metis's concoction. Cronus drank deeply, savoring the vintage, but satisfaction quickly turned to horror. His face turned pale, his divine body convulsed, and a terrible nausea seized him. With a retch that shook the palace walls, Cronus vomited. First came the Omphalos stone, the decoy he had swallowed years ago, crashing onto the floor. But the purge was far from over. One by one, in reverse order of their birth, the children of Cronus emerged from his mouth. Out came Poseidon, shaking the nectar from his hair. Then Hades, with eyes as dark as the pit, followed by the majestic Hera, Demeter, and Hestia. They had entered as infants, but they emerged as fully grown, immortal gods, their power undiminished by their imprisonment. They looked at Zeus, the brother they had never met, and understood instantly. The reunion was brief but intense. There were no tears, only a shared, burning desire for justice. Cronus, weak and gasping on the floor, looked up to see not one enemy, but 6. He roared for his Titan brothers, Oceanus, Hyperion, Iapetus, and the others, to come to his aid. Realizing they were outnumbered by the sheer size of the Titan host, Zeus and his siblings retreated to the highest peak across the valley, Mount Olympus. The lines were drawn. On one side, Mount Olympus and the brutal might of the past. On the other, Mount Olympus and the new order. The sky darkened, and the air grew heavy with static. The Cold War was over. The Titanomachy had begun. The war that followed was not a mere battle of armies. It was a cosmic cataclysm. For 10 long years, or great years of the gods, the forces of Mount Olympus clashed with the forces of Mount Olympus. When the Titans marched, the earth shook. When the Olympians attacked, the skies burned. But despite their fury, neither side could claim victory. The Titans were massive, elemental forces of nature, possessing raw strength that seemed insurmountable. The Olympians were agile and fierce, but they lacked the firepower to deliver a killing blow. The universe itself groaned under the strain of this endless stalemate. Zeus, frustrated by the deadlock, looked for a way to break the balance. It was Gaia, the ancient Earth Mother, who whispered the secret to victory.
Release them, and victory will be yours.
She reminded Zeus that Cronus had made enemies long before he ate his children. Deep in the bowels of the underworld, in the gloom of Tartarus, lay the brothers Cronus had betrayed, the Cyclopes and the Centimanes. Zeus did not hesitate. Leaving the front lines, he descended into the deepest darkness of the cosmos. He traveled beyond the roots of the sea and the earth, arriving at the brazen gates of Tartarus. There, he slew the monstrous jailer camp and broke the chains that had held his uncles for eons. He offered them nectar and ambrosia, restoring their strength, and asked for their alliance. The monsters, grateful for their freedom and eager for revenge against Cronus, pledged their loyalty to the young god. The Cyclopes, master smiths of the universe, immediately set to work to arm the saviors. In their subterranean forges, they crafted weapons of terrifying power, items that would become symbols of authority for eternity. For Hades, they forged the Helm of Darkness, a helmet that rendered its wearer completely invisible, perfect for silent terror. For Poseidon, they crafted the Trident, a three-pronged spear capable of shattering rocks and summoning storms. And for Zeus, they created the ultimate weapon, a masterpiece of destruction, the Thunderbolt. Armed with these gifts and backed by the hundred-handed giants, Zeus ascended back to the surface. The stalemate was over. When Zeus returned to the battlefield, the balance of power shifted instantly. He did not come alone. He brought the nightmares of the past to fight for the future. The Centimanes, Briareus, Cottus, and Gyges took the vanguard. These were not warriors. They were living sieges. With their 100 muscular arms, they tore massive boulders from the cliffs of Olympus. In a single volley, 300 rocks obscured the sun, raining down upon the Titans like a relentless meteor shower. The Titans, who had stood firm for 10 years, suddenly found themselves buried under a crumbling horizon. But the true end came from the sky. Zeus, clutching the glowing gift of the Cyclopes, unleashed his full fury for the first time. He did not throw a single bolt. He became the storm itself. The thunderbolt was not merely a weapon. It was the raw authority of the cosmos condensed into light. Bolt after bolt flew from his hand, crashing into Mount Olympus. The sound was deafening, a roar that shattered the eardrums of the gods. The heat was so intense that the fertile earth crackled and burned. The ancient forests caught fire, and the oceans boiled, scalding the sea deities in their depths. The text of Hesiod tells us that the conflagration was so massive that it seemed as if the sky had collapsed upon the earth, crushing it. Even chaos, the void far below, felt the heat of Zeus's rage. The Titans, blinded by the searing flashes, deafened by the thunder, and buried under the barrage of rocks from the hundred-handed giants, finally broke. Their divine strength failed them. They were overwhelmed not just by power, but by the sheer terror of this new order. Broken and defeated, the former masters of the universe were bound in heavy chains, a cruel irony, for they had bound so many others. They were cast down, thrown from the heights of the world into the misty gloom of Tartarus, as far beneath the earth is beneath the sky. It is said an anvil would fall for 9 days and nights to reach the bottom. And there, in the darkness, the Centimanes took their post. The monsters whom Cronus had once imprisoned became his eternal jailers, ensuring that the Titans would never see the light of day again. The dust of the Great War finally settled. The roar of battle was replaced by a strange new silence. The Titans were gone, locked away in the abyss, and the universe waited to see what the victors would do. Zeus, now the undisputed leader, stood atop Mount Olympus with his 2 brothers, Poseidon and Hades. They were the masters of all creation, but they knew that greed had been the downfall of their father. To ensure lasting peace, they decided not to fight for dominion, but to leave it to fate. They put 3 lots into a helmet and drew. It was the most significant lottery in cosmic history. Zeus drew the lot for the sky, the vast ether and the clouds, becoming the king of gods and the lord of the heavens. Poseidon drew the lot for the sea, granting him dominion over the waves, the storms, and all the creatures of the deep. Hades drew the final lot, the misty darkness, becoming the lord of the underworld, the realm of the dead where the sun never shines. The earth itself and high Olympus were left as common ground for all, though everyone knew who held the true power. With the realms divided, a new order was established. The era of the Titans was over. The era of the Olympians had begun. This was a reign of anthropomorphic gods, deities who reflected the passions, virtues, and vices of humanity, but on a grand scale. Zeus took his seat on the golden throne of Olympus, clutching the scepter of authority in one hand and the thunderbolt in the other. He was not a tyrant like Cronus, nor a hater of life like Uranus. He was a king who brought law, justice, and civilization to the world. He freed the other prisoners of the war, rewarded his allies, and established the laws of hospitality. The cycle of patricide, son killing father, seemed to finally stop here. Although Zeus would face many challenges and rebellions in the future, his grip on the universe was firm. The cosmos was no longer a place of chaotic swirling voids or oppressive darkness. It was a structured kingdom, divided and ruled. The story of the Titanomachy ends with a stable image. The 12 Olympians feasting in their palaces above the clouds, drinking nectar and eating ambrosia, while far below, the world of men begins to flourish under their watchful, and sometimes dangerous, gaze. The war was won, the monsters were caged, and for the first time in eternity, the universe had a king who intended to keep his crown.